So you're considering moving from Detroit, Michigan down to Atlanta, Georgia. Let's talk about that. Moving from one state to another can be exciting and scary, all wrapped up into one big emotion. I know, because I've lived in several different states. I've lived in Tennessee, I lived in Texas, and now I live in Georgia. And not knowing like what the new place is going to be like, because you're trying to compare it to where you live, can be difficult. So that's why we're going to dive in today of the difference between Detroit and Atlanta through its industry, weather, the commute, neighborhoods, cost of living, and taxes. So let's dive in. Everyone knows that Detroit is world famous for its automobile manufacturing. What they may not know is they also have a good healthcare industry, a good finance and insurance industry, good university structures, as well as a tech scene. So let's kind of compare those industries to what Atlanta has to offer. Atlanta, being a bigger city, of course it has more industries to offer up somebody who's looking for a job. They have lots of Fortune 500 companies located here. Of course, we're home to Coca-Cola, Home Depot, UPS, and Delta. Those are like our major companies. The other industries that are here in Atlanta are as follows. Atlanta is starting to get a reputation for a tech hub, and they are known as the Silicon Valley of the South. Microsoft and Google are located, and Midtown is that area where all the tech companies are coming in. We, of course, have a lot of film industry here as well. Lots of studios, including Trilla Studio, which is I think the largest in North America as far as studios goes. They film all the Marvel movies there. Tyler Perry Studios are here. I think Lionsgate is up in Douglasville. So there's all these pockets that have different studios to where you can come here and film some wonderful films if you're in the film industry. Of course, logistics and supply chain is huge in this area. Atlanta is considered a big hub. We have the busiest airport in the world, the Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport right here in Atlanta. You can get just about anywhere in the world via an airplane if you start off in Atlanta. We have some very good strong healthcare industry here as well, Piedmont and Grady, and of course we're home to the CDC. Our higher education includes Georgia Tech, Georgia State, and Emory. So lots of universities in this area to choose from, and Athens, Georgia is not too far from here, maybe a little over an hour and a half drive where the University of Georgia resides. We have insurance and finance here, starting off with State Farm and Aflac for our insurance folks. And for our finance folks, Wells Fargo and Truist Bank, which finances lots of mortgages. Also, I believe Rocket Mortgage, which has a tie to Detroit, has a big tech center down here to support Rocket Mortgage. Now, this video would not be complete if I did not mention the automotive industry that's down here in Atlanta. We have Porsche, we have Mercedes-Benz, which has locations here in Atlanta, and we're not too far from West Point, which is kind of south of Atlanta, that houses a big Kia manufacturing plant. So we also have those automotive ties right here in Atlanta. Now let's dive into the weather. Y'all, I took a trip to Detroit recently to go to a wedding. It was in May, and there was a big old cold front that ran through, and after that, it was freezing. Like, I was having to wear my winter sweaters to keep warm and a jacket. So I'm not used to it being extremely cold. So let's kind of compare the difference between Detroit and Atlanta. Clearly, Detroit is north enough to get it some snow, and it gets about 33 inches of snow a year, whereas Atlanta only gets 2.9. So if you're gonna come down here, one of the things you need to know is that nobody down here knows how to handle snow. We don't know how to drive in it. Things are going to shut down if we get a dusting. We don't have the equipment to handle it either because it doesn't snow often. Then they just don't have all the scrapers and all the ice melters to melt the snow. Now they will put a solution out on the streets. That's about it. And sometimes that solution doesn't work. So be prepared and don't laugh at us because we just don't get a lot of it, so we don't know. In the winter, our average is around 33 degrees compared to Detroit's 18.5. So do we go below freezing at night? Yes, we'll get frost on the ground, but it will melt off by midday. So it's rarely that it stays under 32 consistently for days. If it does, it gets really cold here, and again, people don't handle it as well. In the summer, Detroit's high is 83 degrees. Isn't that nice for y'all? 83. It gets about 89 on average here, but it is hot and humid, and it is going to feel like it's in the 90s all the way up to 100, and you're going to go out and you're going to sweat. You're going to have a lot of sweat and feel like you can slice the air with a butter knife. It does get very hot and humid around here, so you will have to get used to a lot of businesses and homes of having their AC cranked up in the summertime. Let's talk about tornadoes. Now, I know that Detroit can get a tornado or two, and even though we are not in Tornado Alley, we're kind of in that southern zone, we will get some spin up tornadoes, and we do have sirens that will go off periodically. You'll hear them if we have a tornado warning coming. So if you hear the sirens, you just need to find a nice place in your house to hunker down for a minute until it passes over. Since I've lived here in 2015, I probably heard the sirens go off maybe a handful of times, so it's not something that is constant. And last but not least, sometimes we will get tropical storm-like winds up here. The hurricanes will either come up through the Gulf, or they'll come up on the other side of Florida, or maybe they'll swing in from the Carolinas and southern Georgia. At any rate, they'll come up here and you will get tropical storm-like winds, but it's really not anything to worry about as far as flooding goes. Most of Atlanta is not in a flood zone, but when it comes to weather, you just need to be aware. Next up, commute time. Of course, moving to a larger city, you should anticipate that Atlanta is going to have longer commutes. We do have major interstates that come through the area. We have 75 and 85 that come through and they merge downtown, as well as I-20 that goes across town. We have 285 that is our loop, and we have Georgia 4100 that kind of goes about from Midtown, Buckhead area, up straight shot north up into like the Alpharetta area. From my research, Detroit also has major interstates running through it, as well as a bypass and so forth and so on. I guess the difference between the two is we do have some mass transit. We have the MARTA that goes north and south and east and west. It just makes a nice little cross across Atlanta. The disadvantage of the MARTA is if you kind of want to go up in between the quadrants, a little harder to do. Of course, we do have a MARTA bus system that goes all over the city, whereas Detroit is lacking in their public transit and more people drive. I will say that it's probably a mixed bag depending on where you live, on whether or not you take the MARTA. By and large, you're going to notice in Atlanta that it gets very congested from that about 7 a.m., maybe even 6:30 a.m. to about 10 in the morning, and then the evening rush hour is kind of the same way. We do have some HOV lanes as well as a Peach Pass that can help ease some of the traffic around here. Atlanta's a funny city though. You could go midday and get stuck in traffic. You could be on 75 and 85 at 9 o'clock at night and be in bumper to bumper traffic. So I'm just gonna say it's hard to kind of time whether or not you're going to be in traffic, and Google Maps is a really good thing that I use to indicate of when I need to leave, because it's always kind of calculating the traffic for me. Also, commute time is a big consideration of where you're going to live. I will say on the south side of town, particularly on 85, because it goes to Montgomery, and not a lot of people are heading to Montgomery. It's not as heavily traveled of an interstate compared to 75. It's a huge truck corridor that goes all the way down to Florida and goes all the way to Detroit. But 85, not so bad if you have to pop up to the airport, or you have to go a little bit south of town. So you might consider the southern suburbs, where it's less crowded down here compared to that Johns Creek, Alpharetta mess that's up north. There's just a lot more people up north, so you can expect more traffic. Okay, let's get into the suburbs, and then we will talk a little bit about downtown Atlanta, because you can choose from just about any kind of living style here, from living in a condo to living in downtown Atlanta versus getting out in the suburbs and having a little space. First off, I want to start off with the ones that I was mentioning down on the south side. Peachtree City in particular, it is known for its 100 miles of golf cart paths. Everybody has a golf cart. You will see a golf cart in the Kroger and Publix parking lot, or going through a fast food drive-through. These trails go in between neighborhoods, woods and everything. They're hidden very well, and you can zip around all of Peachtree City from one end to another via golf cart. Of course, then if you're big into the movies, Fayetteville is where Trilla Studios is, not too far from Peachtree City, actually the next town over, and is technically due south of the airport. So you can get a lot of affordable housing out there. Cool thing about Fayetteville is you can be in a nice, cozy neighborhood, or you can get out on the outskirts of it and have an acre or so of land. So you have choices in Fayetteville. It's just a slower pace down here, less traffic, less people. So if you're looking for that kind of a lifestyle and your commute's not too far, you might consider this area, particularly if you're going to work for Chick-fil-A or you're going to work for the airport. Of course, I don't want to forget about Noonan. Let me tie Noonan into here. It's also on the south end of town, and it is home to one of the larger Piedmont hospitals. And it's really growing. A lot of people are moving into the area, which is funny because the old timers are moving further south. But Noonan is the same way as Fayetteville is. You can find cozy little neighborhoods with golf courses. We have some golf courses in Noonan as well as Peachtree City. Yet if you get on the outskirts, you can get on to some acreage. Let's talk about Alpharetta and Milton. Of course, you're going to have high-end shopping there. It's a very popular place to live. You're going to have longer commute times because it is very congested in that area. When people come to Atlanta, a lot of them want to land in Marietta and East Cobb. It has a cute little downtown square that you can visit, and they have wonderful, nice, established neighborhoods. So if you're looking for an established neighborhood that is a pretty easy commute into town from the northeast, then East Cobb / Marietta could be your choice. Also, Kennesaw State's not too far, so there's that education connection as well. Next up, Smyrna and Vinings. Now this is going to be closer to the city. Parts of Vinings is actually inside the perimeter, where Smyrna is just right outside. Easy access to 285 and 75. The Braves Stadium is over in the Smyrna area, so that's a fun little treat. This is popular area for people who are getting right into the job market and starting off because of the trendy restaurants and shopping that is in that area. ChatGPT says that Nova, Troy, and Rochester Hills would be good comparisons to that Alpharetta Milton area, or if you're looking for the slower pace, Peachtree City or Fayetteville. For Farmington and Livonia, I hope I'm pronouncing that, Livonia, you could compare that to Marietta, East Cobb, or Noonan. I would say Noonan's a little bit more slower paced than East Cobb, Marietta. If you're coming from Midtown, Detroit, and Royal Oak, then Inman, Grant Park, and Midtown are great comparisons. Grant Park is historic homes, but has a lively community that's very neat because of the historic homes. And of course, Midtown, you're gonna find some more of your condos in that area. And Midtown's all about the tech sector. So if you're really into the tech, a lot of people are moving into that Midtown. You're in kind of the downtown area of Atlanta where all the great food, entertainment, all that stuff's located right in that area. Now that we have talked all about our commute and where we're going to potentially live, how much is all of this going to cost? Atlanta does have a higher cost of living than Detroit does. It's a bigger city, of course. And I guess the difference between the pricing is that we do have a lot of modern houses. There's still new construction going out, particularly in the suburbs. So you have lots of different choices around housing. And although Detroit might be cheaper on paper, you've got a lot more older houses that need renovation. I heard somebody say the other day, and this is true, they said that the great thing about Atlanta and whether or not you can find affordable housing is you just got to keep on driving until you hit it. So no matter what your budget is, it's really easy to find something that is going to fit into your price range. You just really need to get with a good real estate agent and a good mortgage company to find out what that budget is, and then start searching based on how long you want to commute. Last but not least, taxes. You know you can't escape them. They're always there. Let's start off by the state income tax. So Michigan does charge a 4.25 state income tax. Georgia's charges one too, but it's on a sliding scale depending on where you fall into the tax bracket. So the more money you make, the more state income tax you pay. The range is between 1% and 5.5%. There is a city income tax of 1.25% in Detroit, and Atlanta doesn't have that tax at all. So no taxes as far as the city goes if you live in Atlanta based on income. Let's get into those property taxes, because looks like Michigan loves it, some property taxes. In Detroit, which is one of the highest in the nation, it's 1.54. And in Atlanta, it's 0.87. So we do have lower property taxes here. It looks like both states have homestead exemptions. And we do also have the additional senior exemptions after you hit a certain age. Next up, sales tax. Now, Michigan has a 6% sales tax versus Georgia having a 4%. You got to be careful about that because the local counties add on. So around here, our sales tax is well over 8% because the counties add on to get their share as well. So the takeaway here is that people who live in the Detroit area may pay less in taxes compared to Atlanta, but it really can depend on your spending habits. So if you don't have a lot of spending habits, then you could potentially lower down your taxes here in Georgia. Another thing about Georgia taxes is it's great for seniors who are looking to retire to the area. They don't get taxed on their Social Security income. When they hit a certain age, they can take a senior homestead exemption, which eliminates the property taxes that are paid towards the schools. There is a retirement tax income up to $65,000 if you're over the age of 62. And there is no inheritance or estate tax, so your heirs don't have to pay an additional inheritance or estate tax if you pass away. So that wraps up my comparison to Detroit versus Atlanta. You are going to be moving to a bigger city that's a little bit more hot and humid than what you might be used to. But there is wonderful things to do here. Lots of culture, lots of sports and entertainment to enjoy. You can even go hiking. There's places to go hiking around here and enjoy the great outdoors as well. So if you're looking to move to the Atlanta area, reach out and I'll be glad to help you with your new home search and give you any pointers on what to expect moving into the great state of Georgia. Talk to y'all later. Bye. Are you digging the kind of content I'm producing? Then be sure to watch this next video. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel. That way, you'll be in the know when I release my next video.